So good to be together again this evening, and grateful so much for the opportunity that you have given to me to already spend this wonderful day together. It's been encouraging Lord's Day, and I hope it's you can say the same for you. I know this morning was it's always a blessing when we can refresh and center our minds on the things that are important, our Savior, the blessings that He has for us. It's just so wonderful when we can kind of have that moment the first day of the week, clear our minds. There's so much that piles up in the week, and I'm sure piles up in your lives. And sometimes it's nice just kind of put all that aside and just think what a blessing that all these things that pile up, they really are trivial compared to the eternal blessings we're going to have because of Jesus and what He's done for us. And so we are truly thankful that we've had that opportunity this morning to relish it and be thankful for that focus on that. And just a blessing to be together this afternoon, had some great conversations, some great time to visit. And so I thank you so much for the blessing it's been to be with you. So I wanted to do something tonight, thought maybe just fitting to kind of end on a good, positive, feel-good note. Sometimes it's good just look at some really great stories in the Bible, some great relationships that are formed, great blessings that come from that. And I thought it would just be very fitting because I feel very strongly about the relationship that I have with you all and the relationship that you all have been so kind to continue to extend to me, not just in the years that I was able to know you when I was living in the area and preaching here, but throughout my life. I consider you all very, very close friends and do truly appreciate all the encouragement I've gained from you. And sometimes it's nice just when we can think about how nice that is. And there's a great account, a kind of story in the Bible of a great friendship that just formed from two people who both genuinely love to serve the Lord. And it's kind of refreshing when we kind of reflect on that and the blessings we share in that, the friendships that we have because we all want to serve the Lord together. And just want to look at that as we close our thoughts and bring our service here to a close. But if you would turn to 2 Kings, 2 Kings chapter 4 is just a great account of two genuine servants of God. And it's refreshing because it's always so nice when we realize that people who maybe could have ulterior motives for why they do things, we know people like that in our lives, and they kind of break your heart a little bit when you find out, they weren't genuine in this. They were just using me for this or that, or they just were waiting for the right opportunity to gain something out of this. And you don't find that with these two people. There are sometimes we get our hearts broken when we feel like maybe there are people like that in our lives, but what a blessing when we know the genuine friendships, that we trust one another and we trust that we're there for each other for the right reasons because we genuinely love one another. And genuine love, genuine kindness, it's so precious and it's so valuable in a world where so many people use it and they just fake it to get things and to use things out of people. And it's just kind of refreshing. We see that's what unfolds for us in 2 Kings chapter 4 and verse 8. It says, "Now there came a day when Elisha passed over to Shunammite, where there was a prominent woman, and she persuaded him to eat food." Right away, I love how this story already starts out. You've got a woman, since she's a prominent woman. This is a woman, has a lot of influence. She's got a lot of money. She has just a lot of advantages. Wouldn't that be nice? That be said about you, a prominent person here in Worcester. Wouldn't it be great? You're the prominent one who lives here, or maybe wherever you reside. Not a bad way to go through life. Have a lot of access to a lot of good things. Is it also refreshing we find those people that have access to privileged lifestyles, they have access to a comfortable way of living, and you find out that they're really good people too, that they're genuine, they have genuine good hearts, and it makes you feel good that they're in that kind of position. As opposed to sometimes really, you find out some people, they cheated, they've lied, they've just been really rotten people to get the things. You wonder, how do you even enjoy some of these things you have? It must be miserable to go to bed at night. But here's a woman, And she's a prominent woman, and she sees this servant of God. And he's come back and forth in her community, and she recognizes this man has dedicated his life to serving the Lord. And that reason alone, because she also recognizes this is a man who also is not a very conceited man. Notice it says that this woman had prominent means. She wants to offer comfort. She wants this man to come in and just have a nice meal. She wants him to just kind of take a load off and relax. She appreciates this is a man who works for God. She recognizes this is a hard job. This is a taxing job. She's thought about this. And it concerns her that she wants this man of God to continue to have energy in this work and to continue to be refreshed. So she uses her status in the community. Come on in and have a good meal tonight. And notice it says she had to kind of twist his arm a little bit too. Notice it said she persuaded him. That says something about who Elisha is. Elisha, as prominent as he is, Elisha is also a prominent figure. In fact, we're going to learn from some of the things Elisha says. Elisha knew a lot of people in high places. He has a lot of access to privileged positions because of his situation. And isn't it refreshing when you see people who also are serving God because of their, maybe they're very well known in their work. There's a lot of people that are. They're very well known. We kind of use that word big name preacher or someone just known in the brotherhood. They have a name. Isn't it wonderful when you find people that, yes, they have a good name. There's a reason for it. They have a good name because they have got good hearts. Got good reputations. They've got good, just genuine hearts of why they're even doing this. And that's Elisha. Elisha's not the kind of guy that says, well, because I'm the servant of God, I know where I'm going to eat tonight. I'm sure I'll be eating with the Shunammite woman. Of course. That's where someone of my status would want to be eating tonight. She has to persuade him. And why is she persuading him? Because he's been more likely been settling with meager situations. He probably hasn't had the best meals for a while. He probably has been just doing with what he can get. He's okay. I'm serving God. I'm fine with humble circumstances. But the Shunammite woman says, well, I can make a really nice meal for you. And I'd like you to enjoy that. Come on in. Just can you picture that? I just love that picture. She persuaded him. He's the kind of guy that I kind of felt like, well, you don't have to don't put yourself out for me. It's no trouble. No, I want to do it for you. But that's how this opens up. It says there was a day when Elisha passed over to Shunem, where there was a prominent woman, and she persuaded him to eat food. And so it was, as often as he passed by, he turned in there to eat food. This wasn't one occasion. They started a great relationship. A great friendship is formed. And isn't that a blessing when we see people who have great hearts, they're in a wonderful position of life, they have access to material things, they can afford some nicer things in life, and they just want to share that, and they want to see other people enjoy that. And she wanted this prophet to experience what it is to come in from a hard day's work of doing the work he did as a prophet. We know the hard work it was. We had a lot of rejection. Didn't have a lot of times where he went home with a home-cooked meal or feeling welcomed or comforted or thanked for his work. Can you imagine the number of times when Elisha had to go home and feel, well, not a lot of people like what I said today. A lot of people sure were mad at me after that lesson. And he went home maybe with a growling stomach and not a whole lot of hospitality. Well, when he went by this woman's house, she wanted to make sure that he had that. She wanted to make sure that he felt encouraged to keep doing this work, all for the sake of she just wanted to be kind. And we're going to find out how kind she is. Because that wasn't enough for her. It wasn't enough that he was being fed well, and she could afford to feed him well. And he's getting some good meals. And it says, she said to her husband, behold, now, I perceive that this is a holy man of God passing by us continually. Please, let us make a little walled upper chamber, and let us set a bed for him there, and a table, and a chair, and a lampstand. And it shall be, when he comes to us, that he can turn in there. Isn't that kind of nice? She just goes through all the works here. She's like, she's just thinking, and I love how she's just thinking about all the conversation, and no doubt, probably in their conversation, she picked up not only is this a holy man of God, she appreciated the fact that Elisha was a man who would get by on humble means. That probably was a man she probably respected and felt, shouldn't someone like that be able to enjoy some comforts of life? She felt that. But we enjoy a lot of comforts. And she's like, and this man's doing some great work for God. Shouldn't he feel refreshed from time to time? Shouldn't he feel appreciated? Absolutely. And she's talking to her husband, and no doubt getting a feel for the fact that the hard situations Elisha has been in. And no doubt he's probably relayed some situations to her about times when people weren't as nice and weren't as kind as this woman and her family was. And she's just almost just picturing, I almost think, what it's like when you've had a hard day and you have that good meal, and I'm sure probably maybe some of us did it, just stretch out a little bit, wouldn't it be nice just to sit down and just take a load off? And she's thinking about, well, I like the fact that I fed him, but I want him to feel relaxed, really relaxed. And I want him to feel like he's got some comfortable place to do his studying and to think and meditate as he does these things and serves other people. I like the fact that she's just genuinely thinking, what can we do for him? And let's pull out all the stops. And so it says there in verse 10, she says, please let us make a little walled upper chamber and let us set a bed for him there and a table and a chair and a lampstand. This, I imagine some people like, now hold on there, Shunammite, we're going a little too far now. I think he's got a bed, he's got a good meal, I think he's got enough. He's like, no, in her mind, we can't do enough for this man. What can we do to really make him feel appreciated and get the well rest he should have and the accommodations he should probably get to do the best quality work he can do? Because after all, he's doing this for God. Let's not hold out on him. She says, after all, we have the means. We have the ability. And her husband agreed. She didn't get shot down. You're talking about a lot of money here, a lot of work, a lot of effort. And they both believed that this man would be nice to do that for him. And so there in verse 11, and we picture the blessing. It says, one day he came there and turned into the upper chamber and rested. And guess what Elisha does? Now Elisha is enjoying these blessings. And again, we see a great picture of Elisha. Elisha wasn't the kind of person that, well, it's about time someone really appreciated the kind of man I am. It's about time someone did something for me. No. He now says, something should be done for this woman. He knows how rare this is. He knows this woman has gone above and beyond what most people would even think would be normal accommodations, acceptable accommodations for someone who's working for God. And he's there enjoying the elaborate way that she's set this place for him, and he's beside himself. He's like, isn't that sweet? And I love, he's appreciative. He doesn't have a big ego. He's not conceited. He's not thinking, he can't believe she did all this for him. And someone's like, well, Elisha, shouldn't you deserve that? Elisha doesn't have that attitude. I like Elisha. Elisha's a prominent figure in our Bibles. And Elisha was a humble man who simply did this work because he loved God. And he was willing to do whatever hardships it took. And so when someone was going to pull out all the stops and help him, he thought they needed to be thanked. Shine the spotlight on them, what they did. And that's what he's doing now. It says, one day he came there and turned into the upper chamber and rested. And he said to Gehazi, his servant, call this Shunammite. He's like, we got to do something big for her. And when he had called her, she stood before him. And he said to him, say now to her, behold, You have been careful for us with all this care. Again, he's so amazed. He's beside himself how much they've done and the specifics they've done to think about what he needed. And he's so grateful. And there it says, verse 14, he said, back up to verse 13. He said, say now to her, behold, you have been careful for us with all this care. What can I do for you? Would you be spoken for to the king or to the captain of the army? In other words, again, Elisha kind of flashing his credentials a little bit here, again, reluctantly saying, well, I am someone who is a prominent figure myself. I know some people in some very high prominent places. You got any debts we can help you out with? You got any problems with anybody? Now I can speak to the captain of the army. You can fix it pretty quick. She turns him down. She genuinely just wanted to help. She doesn't want favors. Isn't that amazing when somebody does something so nice and then they want to show appreciation and they say, no thanks required. I didn't do it for the thanks. I wasn't even thinking about you. I care less if you even said a word to me about it. Isn't that sweet? That's what she does. He says, I can pull some high top people, can settle any problem you have just like that because of who I am and because I know them. And listen to what she says. She answered, I live among my own people. And what she's kind of saying, I've got good neighbors. We take care of each other. We all kind of look out for each other. May not always be perfect. Maybe you've noticed. Maybe I could use maybe a little extra care in some matters. But she says, no, I'm satisfied with how we take care of ourselves in our community. We got everything we need. But Elisha's insistent. Elisha can't let this. He's like, no, you don't understand. You have done so much. And again, I also want to highlight this. What does Elisha think is so much? A good meal, a bed to rest in, and accommodations to study. And like that, Jesus, just a cup of cold water. Don't ever underestimate the good that goes from just kindness, just simple kindness. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be huge. I mean, he felt it was a big deal. But really, what was it? It was made him feel rested, made him feel accepted, have some things that just made him feel comfortable. And he believes this warrants a reward. Makes me think of what Jesus said about those who are going to be on the right-hand side of their reward. Remember those people that Jesus described? All those great people who he said, you know why you get your reward? Because when the Son of Man was hungry, when Jesus was thirsty, when he was in prison, you visited him. You fed him. You took care of him. When did we do that? When you did it to the very least. My people, you did it to me. He thought that was worthy of a reward. That means something. Kindness, generosity, hospitality. And I just want to say these things because I want you to know how much I appreciate those extensions that you have offered to me. It means a lot. And I know others feel the same way. You're a generous congregation. You're a hospitable congregation. You let those who preach the word of God know that they are appreciated. And you offer those acts of kindness. And I just want you to know that you need to be appreciated as well. That you need to recognize what great things you are doing. That it's not just a little thing. The food that we ate together, it was refreshing. It was encouraging. It means something. So that you put effort and you went through all that time to make sure that we all had a good time and that you took care of the one who's preaching. I appreciate you very much. And Elisha wanted this woman to know that. We need to say these things to each other. We need to express these things to one another. And so that's what he's pointing out. So notice he says, I can take care of some really messy problems for you. I can make them go away. And she said, no, that's okay. I live among my own people. And he said, what then is to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, truly, she has no son, and her husband is old. He said, call her. When he had called her, She stood in the doorway, and he said, at this season next year, you will embrace a son. And now, this is too much for her. She's like, not in a million years she ever thought just making a table, making good food, taking care of a tired, worn-out preacher who could use a kind face to just welcome him in. He wants to go all out. And notice he says, well, this time next year you're going to embrace a son. And she said, no, my Lord. Oh, man of God, do not lie to your maidservant. He said he knows the right thing to pay her back. And so they've been able to spot right in that she would be elated to be a mother. That would just make her whole life. Again, for what? We're going to point out because he knows how much that means. It's attention to detail. That's what it is. When we pay attention to little things, it means so much. That's what says I care. It's the little things. I remember one time, and I'll never forget it. I was on my way to Mississippi. Had an opportunity to work with a congregation there when I was just thinking about preaching. And they were kind enough to say I could work for a summer there with the located preacher. And I was on my way, and I stopped in to visit a friend of mine that lived in Ravenswood, West Virginia. And so I stopped in to say hello, and his grandpa was out looking at my car. And he was looking at it, he knows I got a long journey ahead of me, and he says, Daniel, when's the last time you changed these windshield blades? That's a pretty worn out windshield blades. I always had to change it in a while. He says, come on, going over to AutoZone, I'm going to put some new windshield blades on this thing. It rained. It rained on that journey. I wasn't even thinking about it. I will never forget that attention to detail. It's not these big, huge things. It's the little things that they're thinking about what you might need and how I can help you because I want you to know I appreciate you. And so many of you have done that on so many occasions. The attention you are to detail, the attention you are to the needs of whether it's my family, other families, you have a reputation for attention to detail, and it is appreciated. And it is a blessing to have those good hearts. So he just wants her to know how much I thank you that you paid attention to the little details that made my life so much easier. And so in verse 17, here's the payback. The woman conceived and bore a son at that season next year, as Elisha had said to her. And they all lived happily ever after. No, I wish you could say that. They do eventually. There is a tragedy. Oh, boy, is there a tragedy. That woman who said, don't, please, it's almost like she said, don't tease me. Don't you dare bring up something like me having a child if you can't deliver on it. Don't even bring that up. Don't get my hopes up, is what she was saying. We're going to later find out she said some other things indicate this is a very, very sore spot for her. This is not something you joke around about. This is not something you hint at. The idea that she is childless is something that has festered in her life for a long time. Now, she has come to terms with this at this point of her life, but she's indicating, I have dealt with this childlessness in my life, and I don't need someone just dangling these hopes that you can't come through on. Came through, and she's enjoying the blessing. But guess what? Yeah. Child gets sick. And there's danger. It says in verse 18, when the child was grown, the day came that he went out to his father to the reapers. He said to his father, my head, my head. And he said to his servant, carry him to his mother. When he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her lap until noon and then died. She went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God and shut the door behind him and went out. And then she called to her husband and said, please send me one of the servants and one of the donkeys that I may run to the man of God and return. He said, why will you go out to him today? It is neither new moon, or Sabbath. And she said, it will be well. Think about that for a moment. I don't get the impression things are really well right now. I get the impression the worst thing she ever could have imagined that may or may not have already happened to her has happened. The unthinkable. Put this amazing gift, this impossible wish list, make it happen, only for her to lose it. She is devastated. She already hinted, I couldn't bear it. I couldn't bear it. If you even just, we're thinking out loud. Well, what if you could have this? You don't understand. I can't meditate and think about something like that. It hurts too much. How bad do you think she's hurting now that the promise has been delivered and the child dies? And in the midst of her pain, what did she say? It's going to be okay, to her husband. Wow. It's going to be okay. Don't worry. Verse 24. Then she sat on the donkey and said to her servant, drive and go forward. Do not slow down the pace for me unless I tell you. So she went and came to the man of God to Mount Carmel. When the man of God saw her at a distance, he said to Gehazi, his servant, behold, there is the Shunammite. Please run now to meet her and say to her, is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with the child? Just when you see all the positive qualities of Elisha, they just keep even getting better. Elisha, just true all that, just genuine. This woman wasn't just a number to him. This woman was special to him. All the things he said to her, he meant every word. He's seeing her from a distance. He's busy handling things. But just the mere sight of her in a distance. Wait a minute, that Shunammite woman, I know her. And asked about her family. How's your husband doing? Hey, how's that son doing? I love it when we see genuine hearts kind of matching up. He appreciated her. Why? Because she showed such attention to detail. You know the best way to show appreciation to that? You show attention to detail to their lives. And he did. He wanted her to know, I think about you and your husband. I think about your child. I think about the life you must be enjoying. And now I want to know. Hey, I know I'm busy, but we've got a special relationship. I want to hear all about it. How's it going? How's it going? And, you know, that means a lot when we know the schedule some of these people kept, these prophets. Sometimes they didn't have a lot of time to sit and chit-chat. In fact, on one occasion, Jesus told his apostles, you don't have time for chit-chat. He said, you're in too much of a hurry. He said, he kind of gave them an impression, you keep going on your way, and you got to have a sense of urgency about what you're doing here. Even this prophet realized there's certain people in your life that there's time. There's time to get to know each other and to know how each other are doing. And so he says, hey, run now to meet her and say to her, is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with the child? And she answered, it is well. Wait a minute. There's again, it's well. Doesn't sound too well. Doesn't sound like it's too good. Why is she's saying this? She answered, it is well. When she came to the man of God to the hill, she caught hold of his feet, and Gehazi came near to push her away. But the man of God said, let her alone, for her soul is troubled within her, and the Lord has hidden it from me and has not told me. Again, attention to detail. Even though God has not specifically given him by the Spirit all the details of what this woman's suffering, I can tell by her face. I know when a woman's upset. I know what it looks like when a woman's been crying. And clearly this woman's got something going on that's pretty tragic right now. And just by the look on her face, I think we need to investigate. We need to find out what's the problem. He's not too busy. He's not too busy to pause for a moment. I want to know what you're going through. I want to know how I might be able to help you Those are the blessings of friendships that are formed, the time we invest in each other's lives, and the way we become helpful aids to one another. And so he says this. He says, I can tell, even though the Lord has not told me, but there's something wrong with her. And in verse 28 says, then she said, did I ask for a son from my Lord? Did I not say, do not deceive me? Again, she is indicating that this has been a very tragic sore spot for her. And by this statement, it's almost as if another window opens up into the history of her life. It seems by the things that she has said, the statement she indicated before, please, I want you to understand how sensitive a subject this is for me. She indicates it again. Isn't this what I told you? I told you, don't you dare give me the impression that I can enjoy something like this only if it's going to be taken away from me. I couldn't bear it. What this indicates is one of two things. Either she had been unable to have children, and that idea, that reality was so crushing to her at one time that it has taken her literally years to finally deal with it. Or she did have a child at one time who died, and it took her forever to get over it. One of this, I don't know, more likely probably the child business. I would probably guess she couldn't have children. And they spotted it, said, wouldn't it be great if you could have a child? They could see this would be something she would just be, it would be beyond her to fulfill her dreams. But there was a moment in her life where she's indicating this was so devastating, so crushing. She's now reliving that. It's as if the scars of her past have been opened up all over again. But it's interesting, we don't know that about her the first time we're introduced to her. She's not carrying herself as if this is a woman in deep pain. In fact, this is a woman who seems to be almost highly intuitive to understand, what are other people suffering through? What are other people going through that I might be able to help them? What we begin to piece together is that this tragic reality for this woman, childlessness, unable to have a child, at some point was so devastatingly painful to accept that she didn't know how to move past it, but she learned. She learned eventually it will be well. How? Well, what we see from her, she's a woman who literally has thrown herself into service. See that man of God? What we can do for him? Delighted. The reason that Elisha knows something's wrong with her is he's not used to seeing her that way. When they would be together, they would be laughing. They would be enjoying pleasantries. They'd be enjoying the blessings of being together. The reason I know something's wrong is because she doesn't normally carry herself this way when I'm around her. We're used to exchanging pleasant conversation and joyful things that we're enjoying and being thankful for. This woman has tragedy written all over her face. It reminds me of something Paul said that we can learn to do even in the midst of our own tragedy. That when tragedy strikes us, that we like the Shunammite woman, can sometimes wonder, sometimes there are painful realities of our life that in the moment, like the Shunammite, can say, it will, I know one day, I'm confident it will be well, but right now it's not. Right now it's not. It's painful. I don't even know how I'm going to deal with this. Paul tells us how we can deal with it. Turn over to 2 Corinthians chapter 1. In 2 Corinthians chapter 1, Paul says this. In verse E, he says, blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our affliction, so that we will be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God. For just as the sufferings of Christ are ours in abundance, so also our comfort is abundant through Christ. But if we are afflicted, It is for your comfort and salvation. It's as if what Paul is saying is something that the Shunammite woman actually learned to do. What no doubt this woman learned to do is how do you move past devastating, painful reality that is just crushing? You throw yourself into service and you become the ultimate comforter for others who don't know how to take and accept themselves. You know what seems to happen when you experience pain, when you experience discomfort, when you experience hardship? Isn't it the little things that eat at you the most? What does it say Paul couldn't do for 3 days? Something that we take for granted. I took it for granted this afternoon. What couldn't he do for 3 days? Couldn't eat. Food becomes painful. It's the little things. The things you and I take for granted, the things that happen all around us, we don't recognize, and then all of a sudden tragedy strikes us. And as if the level of sensitivity heightens to a level we never dreamed, we never imagined. That's the pain, the stuff that doesn't go away. The knock on the door that all of a sudden just triggers, right? The phone ringing. Little things. Why was this woman so attentive to the little things of a prophet? Because she knows exactly what little things matter when you're suffering. And boy, did Elisha suffer. Boy, did Elisha pay a price for teaching the truth of God's word. And it's as if she has zoned in and locked in on little details. She's perfect for it. Why? She knows the pain of suffering. And she has turned. It got better. How did it get better? I will take the attention off of me, and I will be as best of a servant for anyone else. And this is what she's saying. Don't bring up my pain. I've gotten over it. And how does she get over it? She put it behind her, and she moved forward by putting herself in service to other people. Guess who else showed us that's how he did it? I thought about it this morning. When I think about Jesus going to the cross, how do you do that, knowing already it's going to happen? How do you deal with that? It wasn't like it just spontaneously, I guess they're going to crucify me now. He knew it. Jesus, in fact, at one point says, it was on his mind constantly. He says, how I am distressed until this baptism is achieved. This cup of suffering is fully drunk. How do you deal with that? You know how he did it? John 13. He literally threw himself into service of other people to push himself forward to deal with his own pain. It's there in John 13. Read the first few verses of that. John chapter 13. Verse 1. It says, now before the feast of the Passover, Jesus, knowing, here it is, he knew his hour had come, that he would depart out of this world to the Father. There are some things, just knowing it is hard to deal with. This woman, knowing she can't have children, when that day came and it was reality, I cannot bear a child. You better believe she didn't know how to deal with that. She didn't know what to do with that. How did she? How did she eventually? Here's how Jesus does it. He knows his hour has come. He would depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world. He loved them to the end. During supper, the devil having already put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon, to betray him. Jesus, again, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come forth from God and was going back to God with piercings in his hands and feet, got up from supper and laid aside his garments, and taking a towel, he girded himself. He said, it will be well. Hebrews 12. How did he get through it? How does he push through it? How does he maintain his willingness to continue to accept suffering and pain? Hebrews chapter 12, beginning in verse 2. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross. How did Jesus endure the pain? He threw himself into suffering and serving the needs of others. He flipped it and said, now I'm perfectly suited to know how desperately all those who suffer because of sin need to be relieved from it. And he used that pain, used it and threw himself into being the attentive observer of all of our needs, the world's needs. And I'm encouraged by that. So go back there. One final point from this. No doubt, this is how the Shunammite turns from one day not having the strength to move one foot in front of the other. Apparently there was a moment in her life, maybe several moments in her life, it was hard for her to do that. She eventually gets to the point where not only should she put one foot in front of herself, she can think about, how do I help other people put one foot in front of the other? I want to see Elisha have the strength to put another foot with more confidence. I want to see him get a little pep in his step. No doubt she's probably seen him maybe hanging low a little bit going from time. He looks like he's a little discouraged. He looks like he needs a little boost. How did she pick up on that? She knows exactly what it's like to have pain and it gnaws at you and it's not going anywhere. And she literally became the observer of others. And it became well. That was her healing, which is why she's saying, don't open up. I've already dealt with it. I've accepted. So don't you dare go back and relive this. So that's the pain she's expressing. But there's a blessing in this. And the blessing is that because she was such a faithful, devout truster in God, she gets the child back. She is rewarded because of that dedication to put herself in the service of others. So we go back there and see how it ends. 2 Kings chapter 4, there in verse 29, it says, then he said to Gehazi, gird up your loins and take my staff in your hand and go your way. If you meet any man, do not salute him. Catch that? You don't have time for anybody else. He had time for her. He had time for her. Not this, but no, nobody else gets the attention that she gets right now. This is about her. Do not stop for chit-chat. Anybody else? Nobody else. I don't care what husband or child they have. We're not asking about them. She needs our immediate attention. Gird up your loins, take my staff in your hand, go your way. If you meet any man, do not salute him. And if anyone salutes you, do not answer him. And lay my staff on the lad's face. The mother of the lad said, as the Lord lives, as you yourself live, I will not leave you. She's confident. She's learned confidence. But it's a great lesson. Even when things are not well, they will eventually become well. God has a way of doing that. Sometimes it's through us taking our own pain and our own suffering and turning it into valuable visual aids for us in our effort of service. And I want you to know that that comes through when you show attention to detail. Whether it's my life or other people's life. I may not know the exact pain of what some of you have been through, but it's evident because some of you have done that. You've turned your pain into service. You have done that. And Elisha felt it was worthy of a reward. This woman has done one of the hardest things it is to do, but one of the most signs of great faithfulness that there is to do. To trust God when all your pain is out to be exposed, but to trust that God can use it for His glory and for other people's well-being if you just trust Him. And she has learned, no, I'm not going anywhere because I trust that whatever you do, it's going to be the right thing. And so there it is in verse 32. When Elisha came into the house, behold, the lad was dead and laid on his bed. So he entered and shut the door behind them both and prayed to the Lord. And he went up and lay on the child and put his mouth on his mouth and his eyes on his eyes and his hands on his hands. And he stretched himself on him. and the flesh of the child became warm. Then he returned and walked in the house once back and forth, and went up and stretched himself on him. And the lad sneezed 7 times, and the lad opened his eyes. He called Gehazi and said, "Call this Shunammite." So he called her. And when she came in to him, he said, "Take up your son." Then she went in and fell at his feet and bowed herself to the ground. And she took up her own son and went out. Is there a reward for turning your own personal, private pain into service to God? Yes. Yes. And Jesus, who is willing to do that for us, wants us to know there's a reward that he has for you. It's in the resurrection. That you will be rewarded the resurrection. And he tells us that. Again, one more time, go over to Matthew. Matthew chapter 25. In verse 34, he says, "Then the king will say to those on his right, 'Come, you who are blessed of my Father. Inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me.' Then the righteous will answer him, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? And when did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or naked and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and come to you?' The king will answer and say to them, 'Truly I say to you, to the extent that you did it to one of these brothers of mine, even the least of them, you did it to me.'" And the key is, it's not like just certain people are exposed to suffering. We all are. Every last one of us. We all have something that has been painful for us to accept. These people did, is they used it as an opportunity to become useful servants. And they turned their pain into knowledge and wanted to see how they could fit in the gap of other people's pain. That's the love of Jesus. He put himself into service to get himself through the ultimate suffering and rewards those who do so. So if you're with us, you recognize that, yes, Jesus had his own pain to deal with, but isn't that a blessing that he considered yours? He endured the cross for the joy of knowing that he's the right person in the right place to have the right understanding of knowing what you need to cover your pain. What a blessing. And if anyone is here recognize that they need healing, that they need comfort, that they need forgiveness, take advantage of the blessing that we have here together, that you can confess that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God, repenting of your sins. You can have that ultimate blessing if you can meet the conditions that you're baptized for the forgiveness of your sins, as Scripture teaches us. You can have that ultimate blessing that all of your pain, all of your sin, all of your consequence of guilt is dealt with. And you then can be the ultimate servant for others and put yourself into service to the Lord and know that regardless of whatever we suffer through in this life, it will be well. And know it will be one day, especially because of the resurrection. He will make all things right and reward us for that faith and that confidence in him. So for whatever the case is, we encourage you, won't you come to the front if you need to be right with God, if you have sins forgiven, let us help you, encourage you in any way. Won't you come to the front? We'll gladly help and serve you while we stand and sing the psalm encouragement together.